Welcome back. Beneath the city, the subway pulses like veins millions ride. But what if you're suddenly alone? Tonight, we descend into that darkness, exploring chilling, true encounters sent in by viewers who thought they were just taking the train home. These stories will make you think twice the next time you hear, "Please stand clear of the closing doors." So, turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and let's board a train where the only destination is fear. Let's begin. Our first story comes from Leo, a tale that whispers of the unsettling quiet found only in the late hours. It's a story best told under the cloak of night, where shadows dance and the line between reality and the surreal blurs. A late shift restaurant worker, grinding through the final hours of his shift, wiping down counters and stacking chairs, eager to escape the fluorescent hum of the kitchen, who always took the last train home, a ritualistic journey into the heart of the sleeping city. He found a strange comfort in the solitude, a moment of peace before returning to his own quiet apartment. The subway at 1:30 a.m. is a world apart, a subterranean realm where the echoes of the day fade into a haunting silence. The air hangs heavy with the anticipation of the unknown, a palpable sense of isolation. Empty, save for the occasional weary traveler or the lingering scent of forgotten dreams. Silent, except for the rhythmic rumble of the train and the whispers of the wind that snake through the tunnels. Almost sacred, a sanctuary for those who seek refuge in the anonymity of the night. It's a place where thoughts can wander and secrets can be kept. Leo liked the solitude, the quiet hum of the train, a soothing balm to the day's stresses. He cherished these moments of introspection, a chance to recharge before facing the world again. Always sitting in the last car, the very tail end of the train, where the darkness seemed to press in a little closer. He felt a strange sense of security there, as if the world couldn't reach him in that secluded space. One night, exhausted from a particularly grueling shift, he dozed off, lulled into a false sense of security by the train's gentle rocking, only to wake with a jolt and find he wasn't alone, the unsettling realization piercing through his grogginess. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he sensed a presence that shouldn't be there. At the far end, shrouded in shadow, a figure sat motionless, an unnerving stillness that defied the train's constant movement. It was a dark blot against the dim light, a silent observer in the late-night carriage, a silhouette against the connecting door's light, its form distorted and elongated by the shadows. The light seemed to bend and warp around it, as if struggling to penetrate its darkness. Leo couldn't see its face, only the vague outline of a head and shoulders, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The absence of features was more terrifying than any monstrous visage. Just a dark, perfectly still shape, an unsettling void in the already desolate landscape of the last train. It was as if a piece of the night itself had taken human form. He tried to ignore it, to convince himself it was just another late-night commuter lost in their own thoughts. But the figure's unnatural stillness gnawed at his unease. But the figure never moved, never shifted, never even seemed to breathe. It was a statue carved from shadow, an unblinking presence in the periphery of his vision. Not even to fidget or check a phone, a common reflex in the digital age, further amplifying the figure's unsettling otherness. It was as if it existed outside the realm of human habits and anxieties. The train stopped at an empty station, the doors hissing open to reveal a deserted platform bathed in the eerie glow of sodium lights. No one got on or off, the silence of the station amplifying the unsettling atmosphere within the train car. The emptiness seemed to press in on him, a suffocating blanket of isolation. The figure remained, a persistent shadow clinging to the far end of the car, its presence a growing weight on Leo's sanity. Dread crept in, a cold, clammy hand squeezing his heart. He felt a primal fear, a sense of being watched by something ancient and unknowable. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy, as if the very molecules were vibrating with an unspoken threat. Leo squinted, straining his eyes in the dim light, desperate to make out some detail, some feature that would dispel the growing terror. The figure was tall, towering over the seats, its height exaggerated by the low light and the distorted perspective. Thin, almost skeletal, its form gaunt and emaciated, as if it had been starved of light and life. In a long coat, a dark, shapeless garment that seemed to swallow its form, adding to the sense of unease and mystery. Its limbs too long, unnaturally elongated, as if pulled and stretched beyond human proportions, defying the laws of anatomy. Posture too rigid, stiff, and unnatural, as if it were a puppet controlled by unseen strings, its movements jerky and unnatural. No head, or at least, no discernible head, just a smooth, featureless expanse where a face should be, a terrifying void that defied comprehension. Just a mass of darkness, a swirling vortex of shadow that seemed to absorb all light and hope, leaving only a chilling emptiness in its wake. Panic set in, a tidal wave of fear washing over him, threatening to drown him in its icy depths. His stop was next, the realization, a cruel twist of fate, forcing him to confront the entity that had taken root in his deepest fears. But he was frozen, paralyzed by terror, his limbs refusing to obey his desperate commands to flee, terrified to move past it, to brush against its darkness, to risk whatever horrors lay hidden within its shapeless form. As the train slowed, the screech of the brakes, a deafening prelude to the inevitable confrontation. Platform lights flooded the car, momentarily piercing the oppressive darkness and casting long, distorted shadows that danced across the walls. And for a split second, a fleeting moment of clarity amidst the swirling chaos of his fear, Leo saw it wasn't a person at all, not a living being, not even a ghost, but something far more terrifying, something that defied all natural laws. It was a void, an absence of everything, a hole torn in the fabric of reality, a patch of darkness shaped like a man, a grotesque parody of humanity, a chilling reminder of the emptiness that lurks beneath the surface of existence, absorbing all light, devouring the very essence of illumination, leaving only a chilling, impenetrable darkness in its wake. Leo bolted out the doors, propelled by a surge of adrenaline, his fear overriding his paralysis, running until the city's night air filled his lungs, a desperate attempt to cleanse himself of the darkness he had encountered. He never took the last train again, forever scarred by the encounter, forever haunted by the memory of the void in the last car, haunted by the memory of that perfect stillness, the unnatural silence that had permeated the train car, the feeling of being watched by something that shouldn't exist. Those unnatural proportions, the elongated limbs, the gaunt frame, the unsettling distortion of the human form. The way it drank the light, how the shadows seemed to cling to it, how it seemed to feed on the very essence of illumination. He wonders what would have happened if he hadn't woken up, if he had remained asleep, vulnerable to the entity's chilling presence. If his stop hadn't come, if he had been forced to ride the train to its final destination, trapped in the darkness with the void. Sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet and the shadows lengthen, he still feels watched, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, a sense of being observed by unseen eyes, by something that shouldn't exist, something that lurks in the darkness, something that waits for the unwary, deep underground, in the city's veins, where the tunnels twist and turn and the darkness reigns supreme. It might still be riding the last train, a silent passenger in the dead of night, forever searching for its next victim, waiting for its next lonely passenger, its next unsuspecting target, its next soul to devour. Leo's story is a chilling reminder that some doors are best left unopened, some shadows best left undisturbed. When you're alone in the deep, quiet places, in the forgotten corners of the world, you might not be as alone as you think, that something else might be sharing the silence with you. The shadows can move, they can shift and writhe, they can take on forms that defy explanation. And sometimes, they take a seat right across from you, a silent, unsettling presence that will forever haunt your dreams. Our next account comes from Clara, a story that blurs the line between the mundane and the utterly bizarre. It's a tale of a disappearing act, not on a stage, but in the confined space of a commuter train, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease and unanswered questions. Clara was a university student on her usual afternoon commute, heading home after a long day of lectures and study. The rhythm of the train was a familiar comfort, a backdrop to her thoughts as she mentally prepared for the evening ahead. The train was moderately crowded, a typical scene for that time of day. Students, office workers, and other commuters filled the carriages, each lost in their own world, connected only by the shared experience of the journey. It seemed like nothing unusual was happening, just another ordinary ride on the subway. The kind of journey that fades into the background of daily life, unremarkable and easily forgotten. Clara stood near the doors, finding a spot where she could lean against the cool metal and observe the other passengers. Earbuds in, a soundtrack to her journey. She was half listening to music, half observing the world around her. People watching was a favorite pastime, a way to create stories for the strangers she encountered, imagining their lives and their destinations. She noticed a tired-looking man, his face etched with the weariness of a long day. He was dressed in a gray suit, the uniform of countless office workers in the city. A briefcase rested on his lap, its contents a mystery, perhaps holding important documents, or simply the tools of his trade. As the train rattled through a tunnel, the familiar darkness enveloped the carriage, punctuated by the rhythmic clatter of the wheels on the tracks. Suddenly, the lights flickered, a brief but noticeable disruption to the artificial daylight of the subway car. Just a second of darkness, a momentary lapse into shadow. When the lights returned, casting their pale glow once more, something had irrevocably changed. The man was gone. His seat was empty, as if he had simply vanished into thin air. The briefcase vanished with him, leaving no trace of his presence. Clara looked around, confused, trying to make sense of what she had just witnessed. Had he gotten off at a station she hadn't noticed? But the doors hadn't opened. An elderly woman next to the seat, who had been quietly knitting, stared in shock, her knitting needles frozen in mid-air. Their eyes met, a fleeting connection forged in the crucible of the impossible. A silent understanding passed between them, a shared acknowledgement of the unexplainable event they had both witnessed. They both saw it, the impossible disappearance of a man in a gray suit. A young man nearby muttered, his voice barely audible above the rumble of the train. "The guy in the suit? He's gone," he said, his eyes wide with disbelief. The rest of the car was oblivious, lost in their own thoughts and oblivious to the strange event that had just unfolded. But for these three, Clara, the elderly woman, and the young man, reality had shifted, the fabric of their understanding of the world subtly torn. The train continued its journey, hurtling through the tunnels, the empty seat, a silent mystery, a stark reminder of the impossible event that had just transpired. At the next stop, the doors opened with a hiss, and the elderly woman left, giving Clara a frightened look, a silent plea for understanding and shared experience. The young man exited soon after, disappearing into the crowd on the platform. Clara rode on, mind racing for explanations, trying to reconcile what she had seen with the logical world she knew. But none made sense. No rational explanation could account for the man's sudden disappearance. She never saw the man again. He had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a lingering sense of unease and a question mark in her mind. But every time the lights flicker, on the train or anywhere else, she braces for the impossible, wondering if reality will once again bend and break before her eyes. How many strange moments like this, inexplicable events that defy logic and reason, happen every day, unnoticed by the majority, dismissed as tricks of the light or figments of the imagination? How many go unnoticed, noticed only by a few, those who happen to be in the right place at the right time to witness the impossible? How many people simply vanish, disappearing from our lives without explanation, leaving behind unanswered questions and a void that can never be filled? Leaving behind nothing but an empty seat, a silent testament to their absence, a haunting reminder of what was and what will never be again, and a handful of witnesses who question their own sanity, forever haunted by the memory of something they can't explain, something that challenges the very foundations of their reality. This final story comes from Mark, a young man with a penchant for adventure, Sarah, ever the cautious one, and Ben, the pragmatic friend who always looked for a logical explanation. The trio, buzzing with energy after a fantastic concert, were heading home, their laughter echoing through the city streets as they made their way towards the subway station. Little did they know, their journey home would take a turn for the bizarre as their train entered the Black Mile, an old, disused tunnel infamous for strange stories and urban legends whispered among late-night commuters and transit workers alike. Tales of unexplained noises, ghostly apparitions, and a general sense of unease clung to the stretch of the subway, like the grime on the tunnel walls. As the train plunged into the darkness, the car's mood shifted. The remnants of their post-concert joy and laughter faded into an uneasy silence, a palpable tension filling the air. Sarah, always attuned to her surroundings, heard at first a faint, almost imperceptible, sibilant whispering, as if dozens of disembodied voices murmured secrets from the very walls of the tunnel, their words indistinct but undeniably present. Ben, ever the skeptic, tried to dismiss it as the wind whistling through the aged infrastructure, but the sound had a distinct rhythm, a cadence that mimicked speech, hinting at something more sinister than mere air currents. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, pressing in on them, as if they were hurtling through a dense crowd of unseen people, their voices swirling around the train car. The air turned cold, a sudden and sharp drop in temperature. A palpable sense of dread settled over them, heavy and suffocating. Mark, his curiosity piqued despite the growing unease, pressed his face to the window, and in the murky reflection, he saw fleeting, shadowy shapes, indistinct figures dancing just beyond the periphery of his vision, keeping pace with the train, as if running alongside in the darkness. Sarah and Ben, their faces etched with terror, saw them too, vague, humanoid figures made of pure shadow, their forms flickering and indistinct, clawing desperately at the glass, their touch leaving no mark but a chilling sensation. The whispers intensified, morphing into a cacophony of voices, now seeming to emanate from right beside their ears, chilling, sending shivers down their spines, and disturbingly intimate, as if the voices knew their deepest fears. Panic set in, a wave of hysteria washing over the passengers. Ben, overwhelmed by the auditory assault, covered his ears, desperately trying to block out the maddening whispers. Sarah, her composure shattered, cried, tears streaming down her face as she succumbed to the terror, while Mark, strangely, stared, transfixed by the grotesque dance of the shadows outside the window, a morbid fascination holding him captive. The experience stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity, the whispers rising to a maddening crescendo, a chaotic symphony of dread, and the figures outside growing frantic, their movements becoming increasingly agitated and desperate. Then, a pinprick of light appeared ahead, a beacon of hope in the oppressive darkness. The next station, a promise of escape. As the train relentlessly neared the light, the station growing larger in the window, the whispering gradually faded, its power waning with each passing foot, and the shadows, as if banished by the approaching light, fell away, dissolving back into the darkness from whence they came. The train burst into the station's brightness, the sudden illumination, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness they had just endured. Silence descended once more, a profound and welcome absence of the maddening whispers. The friends stumbled out onto the platform, their legs shaky, shaken to their core, gasping for air as if they had just emerged from a deep dive. They never spoke much about that night, the memory too raw, too unsettling to dissect, but they all knew, with a chilling certainty, what they'd seen and heard in the depths of the Black Mile. Now they actively avoid that particular subway line, steering clear of the Black Mile, no matter how long the detour or how inconvenient the alternative route. The peace of mind was worth more than any saved time. Some places are undeniably old, steeped in history and echoing with the passage of time. And they hold memories, both good and bad, woven into the very fabric of their existence. And sometimes in the dead of night or in the deepest, darkest corners, those memories whisper back, a chilling reminder that some doors are best left unopened and some secrets are best left undisturbed. For there are things in this world, forces beyond our comprehension, that are simply not meant to be disturbed, lest we unleash something we cannot control. The city's pulse beats strongest in the tunnels below a rhythm of arrivals and departures. But as we've heard, sometimes other things ride the rail's shadows, whispers, and vanishings. Next time you're on a deserted platform and feel a cold draft, you might not be alone. Thank you for joining me on this descent into Subway. Horror, share your own strange encounters in the comments below. I read everyone. Until next time, try not to think about what's rattling through the tunnels beneath your feet. Good night.